Welcome back to the Macro Golf Podcast. It's Joe here, and I'm joined by Sam, as always, and Jack is back. He is back. He joined us for the first time last week, and he is back, and I don't know if we're now ever going to get rid of him, so he's back here, and you've got all three of us bring you this podcast for today. Super excited for this episode, because it's going to lead us very, very nicely into a lot of topics on the reason why we've started to restructure the business and do some stuff. So it's really good conversations that we've had kind of without recording this or doing this, just conversations we've had as a three over the last few months. I'm really excited to now kind of discuss this in a bit more of an open form. So, boys, how are we doing? Sam, Jack, how's everything going?
Very well.
All good, thank you. All good.
All
Been
good.
doing grinding out on the range, trying to find my blueprint with Jack, and we had hopefully a little bit of a breakthrough yesterday's practice. So
some good success, yeah.
Excited to get into our new studio tomorrow and actually just hit as many balls as possible, basically.
Love that. And that leads us perfectly on. So let me give the example then, because tonight we are talking about the different pillars that we believe are really what underpin golf performance and getting better at golf and performing to what it would be your personal optimal level in golf, right? And when we built the business out in this new form, we kind of try to strategize on what we believe these are. And I think you've just spoken about one, which is right at the top of our list, and we'll maybe talk about first, which is skill and technique. That is what you've just discussed there, right? We will talk about the others, which we believe are physical capabilities. So what can your body physically do? And then we've also got a third one we talk about, which is kind of strategy, mental, kind of mindset, course management elements. So we'll talk about all three of these and how they intertwine. But Sam, you just thrown us straight into what you've been working on, which is skill and technique and actually working on the range and try and get better. And I would say that for someone like yourself, without trying to make you feel good about yourself and get your head any bigger, physical is no problem, right? You are strong enough, you are fit enough, you are powerful enough, you're explosive enough, you are mobile enough, flexible enough, all of these things. So we know that is not the problem. Skill and technique is a gap for you that you're now trying to fill. So do you want to talk a little bit about that journey and how that's going for you? And let's link this back to what we believe is a huge part of golf performance, which is essential skill and technique, really.
100%. So for those of you that don't know, I'm probably about 5 years now into my golf journey. So at the moment I'm off, I think 12.9 is my handicap. Been working with Jack for probably about six months or so now. Jack saw me on the range and I think I hit two drivers and pretty much diagnosed exactly what was wrong with me straight away.
Oh, well, this guy doesn't believe in quick fixes. Like,
no. Trust me, there's been no quick fix for this. Like, this has not been quick.
Quick diagnosis, and then
a quick diagnosis, and he kind of like flirted with me, lent me in nicely with like, oh, I like what you're doing here, but everything else is shit. It's like, oh, I like the way they grip the club. I was like, great. Yeah, but everything else just doesn't match up at all. So Jack quickly identified that technically my move that I was making was just going to lead for a lot of inconsistencies, whether that's with ball flight or strike. So we've kind of peeled everything right back to the basics, and we've kind of built or we're in the process of building my blueprint for hopefully what's going to lead to more consistent technical swings.
And I actually find that interesting because I'd say for you that actually your fitness levels are elevated probably above where your current performance would be. And actually I think your mental game and understanding of the game, your strategy is elevated above that. So it's probably just a skill technique thing now that once you drag that up, your scoring will shoot. And I think that's a scenario which one person might be in and someone else might be in that actually their skill level is very, very high and that's actually their fitness that's dragging them down. And that's normally where we would come in and try and drag that up. Or it's maybe their mental game or course management, which is just, pony. And actually they've got really good high levels of skill, really good technical ability, but they just don't know how to aim or set themselves up on the golf course or manage their game. And that's where actually a lot of Jack's coaching actually comes into that as well as a skill element. So that kind of opens up perfectly for this conversation. I think that's exactly what we're trying to explain on our philosophy on that side as well.
Yeah, for sure. Sam's one of those guys, like, to be honest, as long as you can get the club head on the ball and actually learn to get it on there efficiently, it's never going to come out slow. He's never going to struggle for ball speed, all that stuff. So that side of it's always going to be ticked. So the main part for us was literally just trying to learn how to stop so much face manipulation, so much change in the move, dangerous problems, and it looks like we've kind of done that. So we're in a good spot going into the season, which is exciting.
Yeah, I think we're definitely heading in the right direction. I think what's been really interesting for me is that, like, you see all these videos and charts of like average club head speed or every average carry distance per handicap, and it's like, well, I'm like way above all of those. And I think sometimes actually, because my face control and path control isn't where it should be, it almost makes it much harder that, because I'm
Agreed.
swinging it quite quickly, the ball's going even further. It's going like even further out of bounds. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if I was swinging it, say like 195 club head speed with driver, it'd probably stay in play, or like it wouldn't definitely go out of bounds across the world then back again. Do you know what I mean? So it's been a really interesting journey, and then what that's kind of led to me, especially with driver, is me being even more tentative and stop me taking some sort of athletic or committed move to it, and then I'm just like holding the face open or not turning properly or anything like that. So it's been a real process of kind of learning all that type of stuff, which is,
So you're almost
which is
then taking
fascinating.
away one of these benefits of yours, which is the speed and the power of athleticism, right? Like that's actually
Absolutely,
that's like
yeah.
a huge
Yeah.
asset for you. And then
Yeah.
suddenly you get coached out of that, and then suddenly you've got another speed. And like when we mucked around when we went to Jack the other week, then suddenly you just rip it, and suddenly you see this new level of golf that just we've never seen, because you're like suddenly you're using this asset that you have that's always almost been like put away because you've been scared of being so strong and so powerful, right? Then and then suddenly that becomes a bit of a hindrance. I also think that, I just think that we're constantly just trying to improve all of these aspects. But it's just for you at the moment, you can just put pretty much all your eggs in one basket and be like, well, I don't really need to worry that much. I'm just going to keep my fitness and stuff topped up, but I haven't got training specifically for that. Cool. Mental game, not an issue really for me at the moment. Course management, not really an issue for me at the moment. So I can kind of just put my eggs in one basket and just put my focus here, which actually probably an easier place to be, because at least you kind of got a focus that you're trying to work on.
100%. Yeah, it's been really nice this winter to have a full, just like technical focus, and then I think hopefully in the next few months we'll start taking that into slightly more of the performance games and some strategy stuff, where it's kind of going to be headed. But like without Jack there, kind of steering the ship as such, and making sure we're on the right path, I'd be back to square one again. Do you know what I mean? I'd be clueless. I'd just be what I did probably the last 2 years, is just trying to increase my club head speed even more and just hit the ball even further out of play.
Yeah, but that one,
that one you nut.
Oh boy,
Dangerous.
is that fun?
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a question for you then, Jack, actually on this topic. So we don't have to keep using Sam as the example, but let's follow it up. When we talk about our pillars in terms of like skill and technique, physical capabilities, mental strategy, when you're talking about this journey with Sam, for example, are you talking a little bit more about skill, or are you talking about technique? And how would you just kind of decipher the difference between a skillful golfer or a golfer with good technique? And when you're working with a player, where do you tend to lean? Do you tend to lean a little bit more on building their skill sets and building skill, which I would deem as maybe like hand-eye coordination as a skill, or being able to understand where club face is as a skill, or being able to hit certain shots as a skill? And technique is kind of like the kind of foundation of that. How would you define those two topics?
I would just say technique's like kind of the backbone of skill, right? So there's plenty of people who you would probably question their technique, but they have plenty good enough hands, and they have plenty good enough understanding of where their club head is to be able to produce what they want to produce, whether that be through visualization or just repeatedly hitting enough shots in that pattern to be able to do it. Now, for me, they kind of blend a little bit in together. The skill element is something we have to train alongside it, and you can't. I think it's often neglected when people start training the technical side. They sort of go so obsessed with how it looks on camera, and forgets the fact that there's actually got to be a ball flight at the end of it. So that's also just so important. So I try to make sure with everyone that we have some element of, we're trying to do this with golf ball still, even though we're trying to do something with golf swing. Obviously, there are moments while we're just doing complete swing changes where maybe hitting into a a net with no ball flight, but it always comes back to then trying to transfer to a skill, which we can then turn into a performance benefit.
I suppose you're thinking like I just came with this as you was explaining that. I'm almost thinking like these guys that turn up to golf courses and these muck around trick shots. They like hit stand on a huge gym ball and smack a drive like that's a high level of skill, right? Like that's like right on that skill spectrum. And then you think of a player on tour who has been maybe super strict coached and actually would struggle then to manipulate ball flight or get the ball moving in two different directions or hit a variety of different wedge shots. That's kind of maybe more than they're on the technical end of that spectrum with, and then maybe like a little bit of skill. Is that kind of where we're seeing this, or would you say that actually?
I mean, if let's discuss it from a tour player's point of view. You give a tour player a club and a ball, and you tell them to muck around and swing however they want. They will get club on ball every single day of the week, and they will make good contact, and they can shape any swing they want anyway. They have complete hand-eye coordination. So, yes, there is a technical element. When someone's so skilled, like a PJ Tour player, they can do whatever they want, and they will be able to get some level of result. Obviously, not to the optimal level, but they will be able to get some. So that there is obviously a skill level that's so high that it's almost like they can do pretty much. I mean, you can almost have swing faults and get away with it there. And I mean, Tiger Woods often spoke about not swinging great, having a C game, and being able to go out there and shoot like 65, for example. Yeah, I mean, it's not really realistic golf, right? But it's sort of when you're at certain levels, it's almost they have so much skill. It almost it almost overturns the technical side of things. I think, but for the average golfer, the technical side is super important because there are so many flaws that are causing so much manipulation of face and so much change of length of arc down at the ball, which causes strike issues. There's so many issues like that which have to be addressed. Otherwise, they're never going to be able to improve the skill by getting club on top of the ball, right?
Do you find players come to you who have very poor technique and high levels of skill? Are they hard to coach?
No, not really, because I would say that's probably it's someone who's super skillful. I'm like it's less stressful to make that technique so good, right? It's more about how do we harness it.
Are they more coachable? They're kind of more tangible, and they're quicker to create these types of changes if they're more skillful, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. You think if I get them into a different position, it's going to take them a shorter time span to be able to, translate club on ball in that position. Whereas somebody who's less skilled, and we might be changing something in backswing, something on downswing, something setup, something that might just change all their awareness of everything, and they become super intrinsically aware. Whereas the skilled player is able to then turn that into some sort of product of a golf shot, right? Which I find happens a lot more with a more skilled player. Yeah, it's much easier to get the result quicker for sure.
I think that'll carry across to speed training as well, right? Like I think anyone who's trying to add
100%.
speed, I think people who are very technique driven rather than skill driven probably would struggle a little bit more with that. Someone who's very skillful will still find a way to get club face and ball. And that probably leads us nicely onto pillar number 2, which is kind of the origin of macro golf that we've kind of now expanded out into these other two, but essentially physical capabilities and having some kind of actually your body being able to, one, move in the way that it needs to be able to move, or two, be able to move as fast as it needs to be able to move, or be as able to maintain balance through speed. I'm going to throw this over to you, lads. Like, how important or how limiting can the body be? I'm talking about someone who potentially has very, very high levels of skill, and I find this actually there'll be quite a lot of golfers at golf clubs, and people can probably think of this player at their own course who is very, very skilled, very good golfer, very, very poor levels of physical capabilities, and therefore they probably just win a couple of cup champs, and they're in their mid 40s, early 50s, and they just beat everyone, and they're a person that always should have been something, right? Very poor, low levels of fitness capabilities, they let them go, all that stuff, but their skill level is still very, very high.
For sure. Yeah.
How important is this? Maybe that golfer was never actually going to be good enough in the first place. We don't know, but how limiting is physical? Maybe even for you, Jack, for you kind of mixing in these circles and seeing it.
Mm.
How much of a benefit is it? How much of a drawback can it be? And how important actually is it compared to, for example, skill and technique?
Wow, I mean, you can talk about it from many aspects. So let's talk about it from being able to produce speed aspect, which is obviously super important at higher levels, any level. To be honest with you, if you want to improve, it's a super important skill to have. And if your body's not able to do that, you're instantly put at a disadvantage. There's a ceiling put above you. You're not going to smash through that ceiling unless the physical side changes. And there's definitely been guys who are just amazing golfers, and you do feel like they put limiters on themselves, and they continue to put limiters on themselves by not doing anything particularly about it, or changing anything. um, and
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but do you think we're going to see less of those highly skilled golfers that don't have potentially the physical capabilities of swinging in the 120 clubhead speed, for example? So I think last season on PGA Tour, I think the average clubhead speed was around 115.
mhm,
But then if you looked at the average of the top 20, you're
mhm,
like in the 120s, 122s, and in the top 10, you're like 125s plus.
mhm.
So like even within that sense, like, do you think we're going to see less of the less athletic golfers, basically? Like you look at the guys coming out of colleges now, they're all like 6 foot plus, absolutely
100%.
built, been in the gym since they were 12, 13, and they're just
Mhm.
absolutely piping it. But they've also got the same skill levels as the guys that
Yeah,
were coming out 20, 30 years ago.
and that just comes down to knowledge and the understanding of statistics a lot more, and
Yeah,
kids that has been taught to hit the ball harder from a young age. I mean, in 10 years time, you won't see a kid out there that swings under 125. It's not going to
yeah,
be a thing. That's going to be the new normal. That's going to be slow, if anything.
yeah.
People will be swinging at Bryson speed. It will be normal. And if people are moaning about distance now, you better wait for 10 years time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be made to look very, very slow. So yeah, these kids coming out of US college are going to be frighteningly quick, because
I, th-
they're getting taught
it's
it.
insane. Yeah,
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 100%.
I think
Fitness is so crucial.
we can exaggerate it even further, right? And I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this, but I just like, even if we take speed out of it, right? Speed obviously is a huge part of it. But even if we take that out of it, you're not the I. There's something. It's almost my argument back when people say that fitness doesn't matter in golf, or golf fitness doesn't matter, or being strong doesn't matter, or it's only about how skillful you are or how good you are, right? Because we will
Mhm.
never have a world number one golfer anymore, or ever. I bet there's never even been one who's 5 foot, 5 foot tall.
exactly.
Mm, yeah.
So there's when that's unchangeable.
Hmm.
So therefore, like that, you're almost predetermined in the same way that people are predeterminedly born that they will never be the world's fastest runner, and they
Hmm.
will never be able to play in the NFL, or they will never be able to do these things. I think people are born to a degree that means they will never be able to become the world's best golfer. And if we're saying
Yeah.
that in that case, then we have some kind of physical attributes that will
Hmm.
stunt us from becoming the best in the world, and therefore physical capabilities are important.
Of course.
Skill set is also limits. There's certain elements of that are also limited, but it's much more attainable to improve some of those aspects, I think.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily believe that maybe could be born without the capabilities of becoming a very, very good golfer, but I think you definitely could be born without the capabilities of becoming the best golfer in the world, simply because of your physical attributes. Maybe you will never be
Hmm.
tall enough, never be fast enough, never be powerful enough, never be athletic enough. And I think there probably are people that are very, very good golfers, but they just never
Hmm.
make it
Due
for
to
that
physical
reason.
attributes, yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Yeah, definitely. Um, and it's a great argument for the people who believe or are stuck in their ways of saying that it's a very old fashioned way of looking at golf, and saying it's still in that era of you don't need to be physically fit. We just walk around, we just
So-
hit golf. It's just not
So
true.
Tiger Woods would still be number one
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
100%.
because he's got
He's got the mental game. Yeah,
and his skill level is good enough
100%.
still that he would be able to be at that level. So
Of course.
if fitness didn't matter, he would still be number one.
Obviously, yeah.
Well, he would be definitely up there every single week,
Yeah.
right? So it obviously
Yeah.
does matter to some degree. I know that's an extreme example, but I think it kind of nullifies the argument from the other side that this stuff doesn't matter. It does matter,
Mhm.
and if it matters at the top end of the game, it also matters further down as well. And you go walk around your golf course, and I guarantee you'll be people that in their heads they know what they need to be able to do, and their bodies just physically cannot do it. And I think that makes
taking it away from the pros for a second. Let's go amateurs and physical attributes. We see it a lot with golfers who come in and just cannot for the life of them play or practice as much as they want because their body just physically won't let them. So then we're getting to a point where their physical attribute, physical fitness, is then limiting perhaps their skill, which is then limiting like how much practice they can have on their mental game and their strategy. So you're like setting these ceilings automatically just because maybe it's their back or their elbow or their wrist just won't let them hit or play golf any more that week. So like that's just quite an instant way of going, right, our physical ability right now is limiting how good a golfer you can become.
For sure. Yeah, and you could say that, and you could take that as far as saying in the golf swing. Obviously, you got limitations too. I've had plenty of clients where it's they got the ones who are. I mean, take yourself for example. Very very bendy. Very, you're very malleable. It's easy to change you. But certain people who come to me and maybe got not quite as good physical attributes, it can be very difficult to change because the options aren't there. There's not as much that, again, another ceiling. You're kind of stuck in that pattern because unfortunately your body predetermines that you're going to be in that pattern, and it's very difficult to get them out of without some sort of physical training, without some sort of physical assessment telling them what they need to do. It just makes life very difficult, and those ceilings need to really be taken out, to be honest with you. The average club golfer doesn't do enough to combat that, basically.
I suppose they also don't do enough probably in terms of improving their skill set either, right? So you
100%.
might find that like they might never reach their ceiling in fitness, or maybe they're for some other reason their fitness progress might be stunted for a specific reason, but they're still not making the most of the skill side. Because if you've got very low fitness, you better have a hell of a lot of skill, right? Because you're going to need to make up for some stuff. You're going to have very, very good short game, very good putting. You're going to have to be very good from 100 yards and in. You're going to have to make sure that you're not creating glancing blows with your driver and you're making very penetrative someone help me with that,
Penetrative.
ball flight, right? So you're gonna have to be getting the most out of what you've got, right? So which is going to involve high levels of technique, high level skill. So let's say you've got really good skill, really good technique, really good fitness, optimal. Let's say you've got absolutely zero strategy and you have no idea where to aim, what shot you need to be hitting at what moment.
Yeah.
This is another. I mean, if we tried to pick one was the most important, it'd be very hard. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to just show how all these things are interlinked. Let's say your perfect skill, perfect technique, perfect fitness, zero strategy.
Okay, so
where are we finishing up, Jack?
I would definitely
where's that
say.
golfer ended up?
What's that? Sorry.
Where's that golfer ended up? They ended up on tour, or they?
Oh, they're ending up a very frustrated human being. They're the guy. They're the guy where everyone says, "Oh, hits it good. Yeah, hits it real good. It just doesn't score very well." That's that guy. If that's you, that's because of you don't have any of this final pillar. And yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people I know who are very talented, and you saw them on a range, they wouldn't look out of place at a tour event. You get them out on the golf course, and it's a mess. It's missed greens, it's short siding, it's hitting it in hazard over and over again, and it just looks an absolute mess. But again, on the range, it looks in complete control. It looks flush. It sounds good. Everything's good. But then it doesn't transfer, right? And they need to find a way to be able to do that. They need to be able to find a way to take that range game onto golf course, and that is like the main thing we try to do with this final bit. And it's, I wouldn't say it's the most important, because there is no such thing in golf, right? Like, they're all so important, but it's probably the most missed, is what I would say. It's, I don't think anyone, there's going to be a very small percentage of people who would even listen to this who would even get close to ticking some boxes on this side of things. It's such a low hanging fruit. It's so simple. Like, well, when I say it's simple, it's close to common sense, but no one does it. So no one has any common sense. Is kind of the consensus what people go with.
It's a really interesting one, because yeah, you're right. Like, it is so common sense of like, right, say if your driver dispersion is X yards, pick a target that either way, right or left, is going to be in play and not in a hazard. But like, no one really does that. Like, I remember playing with Joe a couple of times. Joe, what hole was it at the old at your old course that I up down the hill after the par 3 that you always used to like aim super left,
aim at the trees.
Yeah,
and I was like, what do you mean aim at the trees? I was like, trees.
I was like, what do you mean aim at the trees? And Joe was like, well, I know my shot pattern is left to right, so if I aim at those trees, there's absolutely no chance I'm going out of bounds right. And like, we probably played like 3 or 4 times over the next 2 weeks. And I was like, it finally like clicked to me.
It's
like,
game of
me
averages.
Like aiming center of the fairway and just like going out of bounds every single time. And maybe the one that I striped it is like in a better place than Joe's was, but all the other 5, 6 are like 3 off the tee again. Do you know what I mean? Why do you think that not as many golfers are doing any kind of course strategy? Because aside from you, I only have maybe 1 or 2 other coaches who I work with that actually talk about course strategy with their clients and maybe go on course lessons. I don't feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as many coaches are putting any time and attention onto that.
I mean, I guess it's kind of what coach you talk to, but I feel like they could maybe go into slightly more depth of it. They could maybe go into really covering all the boxes with this, because it's, like I say, it's not confusing. It's when you say it's, for example, what you've just said there, it's going to have a few light bulb moments for people, and they're going to go, oh, fair point. Yeah, why do I do that? But it's, I always believe it's because people want very quick gratification, and they want it quickly, and they want it straight away. So they want to aim at the middle of the fairway, and they want that result now. Whereas they don't want to play the waiting game of playing the averages over a season. They don't care about that. They want to hit that fairway right now, so they get aim dead center of it, even though it's out of bounds 5 yards off the left side of the fairway. So they are just aiming for the shot right then and there. And if they say, I feel like I can do that, take feelings out of it. Feelings are irrelevant. You do a shot pattern, you aim at the center of the shot pattern in the playable area, and then you just hit the shot from there. You don't react, you go in. Basically, if you have a hole at your golf course where you may hit a lot of balls out of bounds. I can think of golf courses when I was a junior where I definitely had holes where I would have hit a fair few balls out of bounds, and that comes down to the strategy off the tee. What was I doing? I was aiming it far too close to that out of bounds. Realistically, your ball should, in a shot pattern, I forgot what it was now. I think I said to you guys the other day. Something like 1 in 20 balls. 1 in 20 balls, yeah, should be out of bounds. So it's, if you think back to that hole, I guarantee you're probably thinking, yeah, I'd probably go out of bounds 1 in 3 there, 1 in 4 there. Everyone has that hole. Yeah, exactly. and then that comes down to, if you think, oh well, I often just hit terrible tee shots off there, and that might just come down to lack of commitment of your target, because you no longer trust the process of what you're doing. Whereas if you have this process, you can then all of a sudden start to freely swing a little bit, and actually produce some better golf shots while you're at it. So it blends into not only just better shot pattern, but more commitment too, which is at the end of the day going to make you a better golfer. So
yeah.
I think we'll do a whole episode
For sure.
on course management and strategy. I think as we're talking about these pillars, we're trying to tie mental into this as well, which kind of has a different type of element. But you start talking about like commitment and execution, which I think we'll cover as well. The thing I find so interesting with this final pillar is like to build your skill is really hard work. It's really, really hard work to get better at golf. It is hard. You're going to need a coach who knows what they're doing. You're going to need someone to keep an eye on you. You're going to have to go and practice. You're going to have to put the time and the effort in to get better. And that's hard work. I would say the same for fitness. And for most people, it's even harder work because they're less interested in it. They're more than happy to drag themselves in the cold and the wet to go to the driving range. They're not interested in getting up and going to the gym in the morning. Like, it's harder. It is tough, right? It's tough to get fitter and it's tough to build skill and develop technique. For course management, you can read some stuff, you can learn some stuff, and from tomorrow, you can just go and execute a better course management strategy.
Just go do it,
literally from tomorrow. So it takes discipline. Yes, on a golf course, it's going to take discipline. There might be some certain shots you're going to have to hit that you wouldn't normally hit. It's going to take some discipline for you to do that. But as you said, low hanging fruit. It's also the fastest. It's the cheapest. I'll probably say as well. It's the quickest way of you actually shooting lower scores from tomorrow.
Agreed. 100%.
And I'm pretty sure guarantee that for everyone listening to this, if you had someone who really understood this stuff come and follow you around in your next round, you would shoot 2-3 shots lower.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure.
And all the work we go to try and reduce 1, 2, 3 shots off our scoring average. If you haven't already looked at this low hanging fruit, there is an opportunity for sure for you. One thing I would just say on that, controversial point. The better you are, the more you get away with it. So the narrower your dispersion, rather than average golf course playing with average golfers, you will get away with it a little bit more. So actually, I'm going to throw this out to say it's one of the things where the worse you are, the more benefit you're going to get even. Like, if you're spraying it, like, this is an even bigger opportunity if you shave more shots. Then you've got even more shots to be able to save.
For sure.
So it's not like I'll worry about that when I get down to single figures, or I'll worry about that when I start hitting my driver straight, right? Like, no, now do it from now, and it's gonna be so much easier for you when you start hitting driver straight. Because then you can start picking better targets, right? You can start being a little bit more aggressive with your target. So I think I hear that a lot from people to say, "Oh, I haven't got to worry about that for now. You know, I'll worry about that when I start when I get rid of this two-way miss. I'll start worrying about that, or when I start get rid of my slice, I'll start worrying about that. Well, actually, no, now is the time to get good at it because it's
essential
just as much.
It is, and it's one of those things too. It's not necessarily. I know we say you can improve it overnight. You could. You're not going to get it overnight, though. You're not going to get the full element of it overnight. There's so much to it. There's so much, like even the basic skill of aiming away from a pin so let's say you got a pin tucked on the right hand side. You may know in your brain we shouldn't be going at that, but if you've not practiced aiming away from pins, you've not practiced visualizing something where there isn't a flag there, your brain's automatically going to be pulled towards that pin. And it's just a skill. If you haven't trained it, it's not as easy as you might think. So the same as all three of these, there are processes to getting better at them, and you do need to be able to have that process in order to develop the skill of sort of the mental strategy of it. It's not just I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, that'd be great if it did, but you can certainly start to make small improvements, and you could do that straight away. But yeah, the long term and the overall may take a little bit longer.
Good catch. And the other thing is it's going to be personal as well. So your strategy should be different to someone else's strategy based on your game, based on your shot dispersion, based on your physical capabilities, right? One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was when I went and played golf with Jack and tried to hit it on the same line that he did. Mistake. Different game.
Yeah.
We actually had a good one on the retreat when Jack just walks up, hits his 3-wood onto this it's like a complete dog leg right hole. You can't see the green or anything. Jack just picks up his dog leg, just picks up his 3-wood and just knocks it straight over these trees. And everyone's like, "Oh, so is that the line?" Jack's like, "No, that is not the line. Do not go on that line. That is not the line. Hit it down there, and that'll be fine." Like, So
I should
your
have.
strategy will be different to other people's strategies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And that kind of comes down to the first element, obviously the technical side, the skill side. It allows me
100%.
then to take a different strategy onto golf course. I could be a little bit more aggressive. I could go for a few more things and have a bit of trust because I got a slightly tighter dispersion pattern than maybe another golfer. I mean, Sam's high speed, but not necessarily going to try take on a tight gap. Because it just wouldn't be smart. It wouldn't be within the correct shot pattern. So yeah, it's definitely doing it for yourself and knowing your own shot pattern. I'll give one free bit of and quick bit of advice for this, because I'm sure you want to try something. If you are listening to this, if you don't measure your stats and you want to get better at this, I would definitely start measuring a few stats. Start measuring where you've missed your shots, and tell me how often you missed a green short and why is it so high, because that's probably going to be the answer. So I would definitely start having a little look where it is missing short and long, and then maybe start to decide your shot pattern based on those sort of numbers that you're seeing there. Because the majority of golfers rarely, when they miss greens, it's pretty much always short. Just a quick bit of advice for any golfer listening.
Great bit of advice. I've got 2 requests from everyone that's listening. So I don't know if you guys have got anything that you think we didn't cover that you want to cover in this conversation, and then I'll send out my 2 requests for the guys listening.
No, I think we've covered everything. I mean, we touched a lot on the technical. We didn't talk so much on how we structured practice around that technical as such.
For sure.
Good point.
So should we touch quickly on how would you structure your practice? Let's go, Joe. Let's spin it on Joe for a moment. So what are you working on, Joe? What does your practice look like on the moment? And are you practicing for, say, the mental game, the strategy, or are you practicing the skill side, the technical side at the moment?
Yeah, good question. So we are, well, again with Jack. So I went to call it a we. I'll call it an I. I know he feels like he's part of it with me, but no, it's my journey. It's my journey. So I am currently working on a tiny bit of technical, but for me, the technical at the moment is very small, and it's just trying to keep me as close as I can to my blueprint and make sure that my checkpoints are in place. So for me, practice-wise, I'll probably spend around 10-15 minutes maybe working on that stuff, and might vary that between like irons and wedges and driver, and just make sure that stuff is, set up is just in check. A couple of fields are just in check, and just make sure that everything's fine there. And the rest of it is spent skill. To be honest, I'm really trying to develop my skill. I'm really trying to develop my awareness of club face, my ability to hit shots high, low, left, right, varying distance with that same shot, and just really trying to expand my skill set. I think one of the things that I lack is because I didn't play golf as a kid. I think I don't have some kind of natural play tendencies that a lot of people that have played as kids have. Just natural feel, natural ability to manipulate shots with no thought. So that's something I'm just trying to develop myself. I'm trying to get better at using one arm, two arm, and just develop more skill on that sense. So technique wise, very very few changes. Now just very much on the skill set. As the season comes closer, I'll then start to introduce a little bit more visualization work in that practice, a little bit more pressure in that practice, and I'll just start to do that as the season comes a little bit closer. But now for this time of year, I'm trying to keep it as concise as possible because it's just too cold to spend much time out there battering balls. So that's kind of summary for me at the moment.
How important, Jack, would you say it is for golfers to structure their practice and actually go into a session with some clear goals, targets, and even aims of what they might try to achieve during that? Because you'll probably tell me you've seen it more on the range, but how many golfers are just buying 100 balls, whacking them down, just hitting at different targets, hitting just as hard as you can, pretty much, without any sort of thought process behind it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, very few golfers carry a plan when they go into a session. It's essential, to be honest with you, if you want to improve and you want to improve quickly, and make sure it happens. Actually, because you can hit balls and not get better quite easily. But but we really want to make sure that we improve as quickly as we possibly can, as efficiently as we possibly can. So the plans is essential. Like you stick to whatever technical thing you have and you don't jump around, which is what happens if you start just aimlessly hitting balls. You try different things, and that might change week to week, day to day, and you just end up embedding nothing. You end up getting no feels, you get no changes, and then if you're not doing the performance and transferable skills in the randomized practice, you're just going to struggle taking any sort of skill to the golf course, which is probably one of the most popular things I see for golfers who practice a lot. Like, I obviously know a lot of golfers who hit a lot of golf balls, and they don't necessarily change handicap, they don't change scores very often, like, and that just comes down to how they practice. Like, it's all good and well hitting loads of balls, but if you're not planning your practice, that's a killer. And to be honest, if I were to go back as a kid, I would love to have had a coach who sort of pushed me in that direction and made me understand that a little bit better. Because even though obviously I got a lot of skill and gained a lot of skill from when I was younger, I definitely could have developed more, and I definitely could have transferred skills better, which would have then allowed me to play better in certain tournaments growing up, and could have obviously led to more things in terms of a playing career. And I can see that now from where I am, and I can see that the benefits it has, and I want to make sure all clients I have are always treated with that sort of understanding of that's going to make them better, right? And that's essential for me. Yeah, for sure.
That's very interesting. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that was very, listening to that was fun. And actually, we could go into a million different tangents in this as well, of like the effects of the technology have had on that, and both positive and negative.
Mm-hmm.
The effect that being able to film your golf swing and analyze your golf swing has had on that, both positive and negative. The accessibility to go out and hit golf balls increasing, both on a positive and negative. You hear stories of old tour players. I'm talking now like maybe tour players who are now kind of like around 60-year-old mark, and they hit a lot of golf balls. They would go out and they would hit ahead of a lot of golf balls in those years, because that's how they practiced. They didn't have any other way of practicing apart from just hitting a lot of golf balls, right? And now I think we've gone to this new wave where maybe we're starting to understand a little bit more about applied practice and the way that we can learn, and our research and learning has improved, and our ability to transfer has improved. But there are still a lot of thought that actually, if you're not hitting a lot of golf balls, you're not practicing hard enough. If you don't have blisters, you're not practicing hard enough. And it's very interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we do a whole nother episode on practice.
Yeah, block practice, random practice. It's all super interesting. And that'd be something I'd love to cover. Yeah, for sure. That'd be good fun.
Good.
Perfect. So, Joe, if anyone is wondering where they can go to find out in what areas perhaps they're lacking, where can they go for quite a handy little tool?
Yeah, it's almost as if you've heard of this little thing called
Very
the Macro
good.
Golf Audit. Yeah, it's almost as if you'd come across that somewhere in your travels. So yeah, we designed this thing based on this exact conversation we've just had and all these ideas that we've been having. So if you are unsure on what area is potentially holding you back from shooting your scores, is it your skill and technique? Is it your physical capabilities? Is it maybe your core strategy? Is it your mental game? Is it your quality of practice, including this stuff? And if you're unsure on which area for you might need to work, then go and take the Macro Golf Audit. We'll put a link below this. It takes around 3 minutes to complete. And on the back of that, you'll get a full report with analysis on all of these areas. You'll get marked on a kind of percentage scale on all of these. And you can quite clearly see your areas of weakness that need improvement. It's completely free. And you'll also get a document on the back of that as well, which will give you some advice on all these areas as well. So absolutely no reason to go and fill that out. And the one request that I then had off the back of that is, please share this episode with someone you think will be useful. We're going to try and get loads more episodes coming out. And it really, really helps us if you just click the little button below, click share, and just drop it in your golf group chat and WhatsApp. Send it to a couple of your friends that you play golf with. Send it to anyone you think might be interested, because we're going to try and produce more and more useful content like this, and we're trying to help as many people as possible. So if you can share this with your group of friends, that would be much appreciated.
Very good. Couldn't say it about myself. Very good.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.